Now that students are back in school and we've settled into a new routine, Season 2 of our podcast will focus on academics, growth, and planning, and the inner workings of the district. Join us as we publish new episodes to break down all the ways we provide a quality educational experience for our students and staff. I'm Andrew Kim, the Superintendent of Schools for the Comal Independent School District and the host of Comal ISD Radio. Joining me today is our Executive Director for Communications, Steve Stanford, and also our Assistant Superintendent for Facilities, Maintenance, and all things related to our construction work in our school district, McCullar. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate you guys. I know it's a busy time of the year, taking care of everything. So first and foremost, Steve, the weather's changing upon us.
Getting cold.
It's getting cold. And Mike, with that, I guess we're switching off from our air conditioning HVAC system to more of a heat system. Would that be correct?
That is correct. Around the district, we're diagnosing issues and fixing those as quick as possible.
Yeah, so that's a big change, really. It's not as simple as turning a switch on.
That is not. We try to test the systems before the weather turns cold, but inevitably, a few of those do fail, and we respond as quickly as possible to keep our staff and students as comfortable as possible throughout the school day.
We talk about this internally, and part of the thing about this podcast is to demonstrate what we talk about internally to the public, for those who are listening. And we talk about the fact that our systems, especially within our HVAC systems, are not uniform, meaning they're not all consistently same units and so on, especially our older buildings. Why is that? I mean, what's the problem here?
Well, the varied age of our buildings and our mechanical systems is one of the problems. Availability of gas versus an electric system and varied levels of maintenance, truthfully. So what we've done is developed a more robust preventative maintenance program to try to mitigate some of the issues on the older units moving forward. And that has enabled us to react before we get to the cold season and make those repairs as needed before we have failures.
So, but in terms of new construction, new of our buildings, I mean, how are we're not obviously replicating that process.
Absolutely not. So we have upgraded our systems throughout the district when we replace the mechanical systems at particular campuses and our new construction to proven technologies. We definitely don't want to be on the front end, the leading edge of new mechanical equipment. What we tend to lean on is the stuff that is out in the market that's proven and reliable.
Yeah. And of course, that actually creates more efficiency too in many ways. And we certainly try to use parts that are readily available for us.
That's correct. So as we're selecting systems, obviously with guidance from our mechanical engineers and architects, one of the criteria we look at is where's the closest distributor of parts. If a manufacturer that has a distributor in Houston is much more valuable to us than someone who has their nearest distributor in, say, Canada.
Yeah. And you're not kidding about that either, about Canada.
No, we have bought airplane tickets to fly parts in from Canada before.
Well, some of the older systems that was built some time ago. And I just want to make sure that people don't attribute that to recent construction stuff. Well, so when we talk about construction stuff, we certainly have to think about building new projects and bonds and so on. So right now we have, Steve, a process that we've been doing for some time now, for the last 6 or 7 years, I think, what we call Comal Forward. So explain to all of us, or to those who are listening, maybe 1 or 2 people, who knows, what is Comal Forward?
Well, it's a nice name that we've given to what's called a bond committee. And you probably hear that in a lot of other school districts. We called it Comal Forward. We named that back in 2015 or 2014.
Yeah.
We were getting ready for the 2015 bond. And we came with that name because really we were forward thinking about the future. And that's really what bonds are all about. So we've pulled them together again. And I think this is probably the 4th or 5th group that we've had.
How many people are we talking about?
We've had attendance between 35 and 40 people.
Okay.
They make up a cross-section of parents, community members, representative of all of our districts. So they come from, all of our feeder patterns, and we have folks that are retired who no longer have kids in the district. So we really try to get a representative sample of our community as a whole.
Yeah, and this year we've added on some school administrators too.
That's correct. We've got some principals on there. Because really what it's all about is getting guidance and feedback as we work through the process of developing a bond package. The board of trustees really drives that process. But Comal Forward plays an integral role in providing a sounding board and helping provide community input so that the board hears okay, this is what the community thinks about that. So it's really helpful.
You know, Steve, there's some other places that I've heard about and been part of actually, where you literally have 150 or 200 member committees. What's your thoughts on those things?
Well, I was in one of those places, and I think it's relative to the size of the district. Some of those larger districts, because they have so many people, they want to get more input.
True.
I think if you get a good group of people who are knowledgeable, and I think what we do in Comal Forward is not just say, hey, here's a bond package, what do you think? We really educate them on the why, just so they really have a good understanding of how everything works. And I think if you get a good core set of people that can understand and then help share that in the community later, because sometimes you have these large committees. I've seen where you've had the large committees, but then later half of them don't even really share what they learn. We want people that share with their neighbors and their friends what they learn at these meetings.
Yeah. So we've been going through that process here recently because obviously we're having to, we're still fighting the pandemic currently as of this podcast. But at the same time, we're going to have to think about what truly is a large problem that we have, which is growth with our students. And growth is a double-edged sword. It's positive in the sense that it does provide us additional availability of resources for our school district, for all kids and our teachers. It does give us a way to, in the school finance law, additional revenue to our school district. So that's great. But then the other side of that coin is that we had to build more places, more classrooms, essentially, to accommodate our students. And so it's a double-edged sword. It's almost like, you got to have this, but then you got to keep up with it. And so how are things going in Comal Forward? I know you guys have, 2 or 3 meetings already, I think.
Yeah, it's been really good. We've started our first couple meetings talking a lot about school finance because, again, that's really the baseline for everything. And we got them educated on that. Then we had Bob Templeton, our demographer. He came in and really talked about the growth. I know there was a previous podcast where he shared with everyone about how we're still continuing to grow, even though with COVID, our economy and our growth still continues. So our most recent meeting, we started putting together a bond package and seeing what projects need to go in there and what those amounts of those bonds would be. And we're going to continue that work at our future meetings. And so it's been really good. Overall, I think the group has a really positive mindset. They see the growth. And that was one thing that we asked them when Bob came is what Bob's telling you in a PowerPoint representative of what you're actually seeing and what your neighbors are seeing? And they all were like, we see the growth.
Yeah, I think if you drive around, certainly some folks may not have done that as much during this pandemic time period. But if you do definitely drive around, I'll tell you what, you can see it. You can see new communities and new developments and so on, which brings obviously families and kids to our school district. So what is the intended outcome here? Let's ask the question, the elephant in the room there, Steve. We're looking at a bond initiative here in May.
That's what we're looking at. If you recall, we had one ready to go. The board called it in February last year.
And how much was that?
That was
$397 million of an ask.
And that was going to be for the May 2020, of course.
That's right.
With COVID.
We canceled that.
We canceled that election. And we're using that package as a starting point because a lot of the folks that were on this Comal Forward were on that one. So we went through the same process of evaluating the needs and the projects. The board went through their process and they approved that. So those needs have not changed. We still need a middle school to Relief Piper Ranch. So the needs that were identified last year are still there. So we're working off those needs and seeing what we need to add to that.
Will we say that the pandemic has revealed some additional needs that we were not thinking about by any chance, you think?
Around the district, obviously, we had a schedule in place, a long-term capital replacement plan.
Which we created back in 2013, 14, 15, during that time period for our long haul. Right.
That's correct. And we've continued that throughout the years. And so there are a few items that the COVID situation has made us rethink. Some of our mechanical systems, adding additional filtration or UV lighting to help mitigate against not only COVID, but in the future, potentially the flu virus and other viruses that are become airborne. And so, yes, we have gone back and looked at our list, and there are a few additional campuses that we've added to mitigate some of those issues.
Yeah.
I think also another area is that the technology with our remote learners. I think that's a big area.
Yeah, no kidding. Boy, that's really been revealed, right? The good thing is our infrastructure has been good, and we've actually done some of that. It's just that our devices, I guess, and what's available to kids to use and teachers to use has been this has not been something of an investment that we made in the past.
I recall back in 2015 when we bought a lot of our technology that we're using now, we talked about not being a one-to-one district, but we never thought that we would have students both on campus and learning remotely.
Yeah, because fundamentally, I'm a big believer still in the sort of the pencil and the paper, but certainly we understand the need for a device. And I think for us, the pandemic has revealed that we certainly need to make some additional investment in that area. And the equipment was aging out. And so we've been dealing with some of the older equipment, of course. When we think about the May 2021 bond, I guess, coming up, I mean, things are kind of up in the air, though, right now. The reason we need to go with the May 2021 is because growth is coming.
Well, again, we were delayed. So we're going to look at a year delay from last year, particularly with our capital projects and the things that Mike's been talking about. We need to continue to move forward with those. We had two opportunities each year, May and November.
Those are the only two election cycles.
Those are the election cycles for us.
Yep.
And so to stay ahead of the growth, I've seen it elsewhere that once you get behind, it's hard to play catch up.
Yeah.
And so I think if you look at the numbers, our demographer numbers, and the time that it takes to build a school, you have a bond, but it's 2 years for an elementary, 3 years for a middle school, 4 years for a high school to get built.
Well, I think in some sense, some of our parents will say that we're already behind with missing that 2013 bond initiative a few years back because we have portables. We have portables quite a bit. Garden Ridge Elementary School is something we're struggling with portables. Clear Springs Elementary School, Freiheit, Specht Elementary's campus. We've been very lucky with Timberwood Park Elementary campus at this point. Bill Brown is getting some portables as well, too. So we're about to see some potential issues.
Yeah, and the other variable that we always have to take into account in addition to the construction timeline is the opening timeline. Because that's why we started with Comal ISD looking at our budget and our school finance situation because there's a cost to opening a new school, right? And so, you might put 3 or 4 new schools in a bond, but you can't open all 3 of them in the same year. You have to spread it out.
And the reason we can't open it all together is
there's a cost. So if you're opening a new school and there's the new teachers, there's that cost associated with it.
So they're operational costs.
Operational cost, utilities. So just bringing a new campus online adds to your utility costs, for example.
Yeah. And those are reoccurring costs.
Yes.
That we had to bear as a school district in our budget. So that increases that, which once again is another challenge to deal with. I'll tell you what, this 10, 12 minutes of talking with you two really has got me a little bit of headache. I'm going to need some more coffee now. But I appreciate you guys joining in. We'll continue to have this discussion about Comal ISD, the bond 2021. Hopefully you will join us to learn more about that. Certainly you can go to our website, www.comalisd.org to learn more. Or you can just call Steve Stanford or email him if you want to be part of this process. So certainly we'll welcome everybody to that. Once again, you've been listening to the Comal ISD Radio. Join us next time as we talk about dyslexic programs, science of reading. I'm really interested in that, so we'll look forward to those topics. Thank you for joining today.